This is a Blog Talk Radio conversation with Carla Barnhill, the curator of the Mommy Revolution. Tuesdays on The Question, Blog Talk Radio conversation with Doug Pagitt, and 4 co-hosts.
Woohoo!
Tuesday.
I was thinking I might create a character to be on occasion.
Oh.
Like, so it's like a little more like Saturday Night Live where there's little things going on. You just never know who's going to show up.
Yeah, like you,
I don't know, like come in character. That's the joy of radio.
Yes.
I mean, we can, can be anybody we want to be.
Mm-hmm. and then you have to go to the video
to find
feed
out,
to find out.
Who could that be? Who's talking today?
You could do the Superman thing and just put on a pair of black rimmed glasses
I
and
could
have
see if
people
anyone can tell it's really me. Wait.
have people not recognize you. I mean, isn't that
now? Who's here?
Who is that?
What?
Are you
What's
a reporter?
happened?
Are you just a crack reporter?
Perhaps.
Oh yes.
Anyway, so we're having a conversation there that has no answer. We're really just sort of seeking input because we're not going to there is no answer to how
Yeah,
much
but I think the
involvement.
problem you all have identified here is that in our country, there's a thing called case law. Mm-hmm. So every time a court makes a decision,
Right.
it's not just a decision about that situation. It now becomes a part of creating a precedent.
It does,
And-
but at the same time,
and that's-
law books are revised every year
Yes,
because
with
it's
new-
ever changing.
With new precedents, right?
Right, and there's 85 different ways to kill somebody, and some of them you will be various levels of guilty
Yes.
of for.
Yes.
And
But what's the phrase that was a big deal with when John Roberts was being confirmed? Stariadisis, is that the proper? Which
have no
means you're going to maintain precedent that's
Right.
been set, and to overcome precedent,
Right.
you can do it, but it's a different standard than setting precedent.
exactly.
And this is why people file court cases. They
Right.
don't. People who are smart at this are going to build a whole history of court cases
Right.
to get to the goal they
Well,
want.
and
They're
that's
not gonna
why
shoot for
law
one.
students, that's what they study is
Yes.
case history, because they have to be able to say, well, this is the law, this happens and da-da-da, and we're going to apply this statute to that and this law
Yes.
in this case and da-da-da-da. I mean, it's
And that's where people
mind-numbing.
are involved in this situation, the Hauser situation, not of particular concern about this boy.
Mm-hmm.
It's what input or
Right.
implication does
Right.
this have in
In
those
ca-
who've
yeah.
been trying to create case law,
right,
in some area,
right,
some area of this. And that's what makes it really not a straight path
right.
of who in the village
Well, and
gets to
that's-
have input, because some of these people are having input for issues that have nothing to do with
anything.
the wellness
Right.
of this kid.
Right.
It has to do with the precedent.
Well, and that's where I think as a parent you have to figure out which village you listen to. I mean, you take it in, and then I think probably what the role of the parent is to sort through that information and create a family life that feels like it fits well with the villages that you've chosen to be a part of.
And the other thing that's fascinating about this story is 25 years ago, this procedure would not have been a given.
Yeah.
Right, so the idea that somehow now you're going to pump this kid full of a particular chemical cocktail, and that's going to solve this,
Well,
this tumor that he has,
what's interesting
is really new and still very. I mean, even though people are like,
Yeah.
they make it sound like it's going in and having your
appendix out,
Yeah.
your tonsils out. Well, and what's interesting is that when I first kind of started getting wind of this case, I didn't know all the information, and my first understanding of it is that he had already been through treatment and was not getting better and was wanting to stop treatment. That was sort of my first scenario that I had in my head, and I felt very differently about it then than I do now,
right.
because to me now it's a whole different set of circumstances.
right now it has something to do with the validity of science and all the rest of
Well,
it.
yeah, and before it was, I mean, I know lots of family, well, not lots. I know families, and I think you probably do too, where they have tried everything and it's not working. There is a point where you have to let go and stop treatment, and you say, look, we've got 2 weeks left. We're not going to have it be full of pain and misery. We're going to make it, so to me that was a very different
Interesting,
case than it is now. And it's funny how just that little sense of understanding and nuance. I was going to mention one other thing. I don't know if you watched the Michael J. Fox thing that was on a couple weeks ago. It was really interesting.
No, about the book or whatever.
No,
He's
well,
got his
he's got this
condition?
book out, and there was this show that was, now I can't remember, something about being optimistic.
Oh yeah.
And his whole thing was about the power of optimism. And he went to Tibet, I believe. Is that where he was? Where they have a prime minister of happiness. And they have a cultural value around happiness. And so these people are always sort of look at you, just have this look on your face like, what? But it was
No, I want
fascinating.
that job.
I know.
I want to be the prime minister
what was interesting
of
and
happiness.
what Jimmy and I started talking about,
The czar of happiness.
the
I want
czar
to be
of
the happiness czar.
the happiness guru. But yeah, so what we started talking about is there's a certain amount of, they give up a degree of individual decision making as a culture. Their value as a culture is not the individual, it's cultural happiness, societal well-being. So they all give up a degree of individual choice and individual sort of impetus in how they live their lives, based on this idea that together, if we all give up a little bit, we all get something so much better.
Well, they haven't heard of Ayn Rand over there, have they?
No.
Yeah.
No. But it kind of goes into this conversation, I think, too, is that how much is individual, we're so staked on the value of the individual here. And when does that get in the way of us having a more livable society?
Yeah. But there's a bit of a myth of the individual, isn't there?
What, here?
Yeah. That somehow you are an individual that
right,
is
right, that you operate completely autonomous.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe if you've made up your own language, created your own social structure,
if you were raised
had your
by
own
wolves,
food source, all the rest
then
of
maybe.
it. Because the rest of it, no, you're pretty much living interdependently with everyone else until
you're living
the one
out
issue,
a script that's been handed to you by numerous
until the one
influences.
issue when you decide, no, here I'm going to express my individuality
which is really just giving voice to.
Yes. Now, Karin, I know
ideology.
that you're listening, and I know that we had a chance to cut you off, but this is going to be the end of this segment. This is Carla Barnhill. She's the curator of the Mommy Revolution. See how fast it goes?
Yeah.
Well,
Sorry,
Steve Scherber has joined us, and we're going to be back with Steve Scherber in home remodeling, home repair,
or
and
will
building
we?
your
Maybe
house.
people won't know if I turn into Steve Scherber. He's got on his dark
in
glasses.
just a minute. This is the question of
See if
Blog
they can
Talk
tell.
Radio Conversation with Carla Barnhill.